Welcome to another in our series, Great Chapters of the Bible. Our chapter today is Job chapter 38. God answers Job. We'll begin in verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shall you come, and no farther. And here shall your proud waves be stayed. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and where is the place of darkness, that you may take it to its territory, and that you may discern the paths to its home? You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? What is the way to the place where the light is distributed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? Who has cleft the channels for the torrents of rain, and a way for the thunderbolt, to bring rain on a land where no man is, on the desert in which there is no man, to satisfy the waste and desolate land, and to make the ground sprout with grass? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb did the ice come forth, and who has given birth to the frost of heaven? The waters become hard like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lead forth the Mazareth in their season? Or can you guide the bear with its children? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you establish their rule on the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that a flood of waters may cover you? Can you send forth lightnings, that they may go and say to you, Here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or given understanding to the mind? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can tilt the waterskins of the heavens, when the dust runs into a mass and the clods stick fast together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions, when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in their thicket? Who provides for the raven its prey, when its young ones cry to God for help and wander about for lack of food? I have spent my fair share of time in the hot seat, so to speak, when I was young. At times I was unruly riding the bus, and in principal's office, lectured by my parents. And I have to say, I didn't enjoy it at all that much. I don't really know of anyone who relished that time of being chastised for bad behavior. It was usually worse the moment I was told, we need to talk. It's then I knew I was in trouble. If you have read the book of Job, you know that the storyline has wound its way back and forth and around until it arrives here in chapter 38. We've heard the different viewpoints on the nature of Job's problems and various philosophies pertaining to the nature of pain and suffering and crime and punishment by Job and his friends, Eliphaz, Zophar, and Bildad, and then Elihu. Now it's God's turn to set things straight. But after all, that's what Job wanted. In fact, he specifically desired an audience with God to air out his grievances. In Job chapter 13 and verse 22, we read, "Then call, and I will answer, or let me speak, then you respond to me," speaking to God. And again in Job 23, 3 through 6, "Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come to his seat. I would present my case before him, and fill my mouth with arguments. And I would know the words which he would answer me, and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in his great power? No, but he would take note of me." And still again in Job 31, verse 35, "Oh, that I had one to hear me. Here is my mark. Oh, that the Almighty would answer me, that my prosecutor had written a book." There are times when we get rather full of ourselves. We have the answers of how the president or governor ought to run things and can't figure out why they can't see it as clearly as we do. We deride the businesses we work for, or where we shop, or the teams we root for, and long to give them a piece of our mind. But I wonder how bold we would be if we really did have the chance to sit down and face to face with them, show them how it ought to be done. God gives Job this very opportunity to show him how it ought to be done. But before he does, God has a few questions he would like Job to answer. A sort of, if you're so smart, then answer these questions. However, the first statement God makes puts Job in his place and gives perspective to the whole matter. In verse 2 of Job 38, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" In effect, in all of Job's rantings, he has actually done a disfavor and given God a black mark for his handling of the situation. Job hadn't seen the big picture. What God follows with in this chapter and the preceding chapters after this is a series of questions aimed at showing Job the wisdom of God by way of creation. It is what Solomon would refer to in Proverbs 8, 22 through 24. Concerning wisdom, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever an earth. When there was no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water." To this day, should we consider each of the questions individually or as a whole, we would be in absolute awe. In the end, Job will come to realize the wisdom of God, for he states in chapter 42, verses 2 through 6, "I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. You ask, who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. You said, I will question you, and you shall answer me. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore, I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes." I recall a humorous little account that tells of a group of scientists that believe they have discovered how to bring lifeless matter to life, and boasting to God so much. When they desire to show God their work in a rather boastful way, they tell him all they need is a handful of dirt and they can prove their claim. God agrees, but tells them in order to do so, they must bring their own dirt. As God proceeds in this chapter and the chapters to follow, he brings to light, so to speak, the elemental things of this world. The foundations of the earth, its measurements and the cornerstones in the deep in verses 4 through 6, the sea below and the clouds above and the powers that hold them in verses 8 through 11. The coming forth of the dawn and its changing beauty, and the curiosity, the way the light has always had a way of dispersing the evil in this world in verses 12 through 15. In case after case, God continues and challenges Job. Where were you? Tell me if you have the understanding in verse 4. Surely you know in verse 5. Who shut in the sea in verse 8? Have you commanded, so to speak, in verse 12? Have you entered? Verse 16. Have you done this? Where is the way and what is the way? Can you do this? Who, what, where, when? From the depths of the sea to the far reaches of space that takes in the stars and the constellation, rain, snow, dew, water, and ice, Over and over, the beauty and majesty of this world and the order and design are brought to Job's and our attention to show us the Maker's wisdom. I wonder sometimes if many of the questions you and I might have would be belayed if we simply stepped out in the quiet of the morning and observed the universe around us and resigned ourselves to let God take charge of our lives, since He has shown us His ability to do so already in creation. Paul says in Romans chapter 1, verses 19 through 20, "For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." What do you think? Is God capable of controlling this world? And Lord willing, let's meet again tomorrow and look at another of the great chapters of the Bible.